24,000 shipping containers. One ship. Line those boxes up end to end and they'd stretch 90 miles. Yet the whole thing is steered across the Pacific by a crew you could fit on a single bus. These steel monsters are longer than the Empire State Building is tall, and they're hauling your phone, your shoes, your entire life across the ocean right now. You've never seen one. You've never heard their names. That ends today. Number 10. The MSC Gulsun class. We kick things off with the ship that started the modern arms race. Back in 2019, the world had never seen a container ship break the 23,000 TEU barrier, and then the MSC Gillisan slid into the water and shattered it. Built by Samsung Heavy Industries in South Korea for the Mediterranean Shipping Company, the Gillisan measures very nearly 400 meters long and just over 61 meters wide, with a maximum capacity of 23,756 TEU. To put that beam in perspective, the ship is wide enough to lay 24 rows of containers side by side across its deck, a wall of steel boxes stacked 24 wide and around 25 high. What made the Gulsun class so revolutionary wasn't just the size, it was the engineering that made the size possible. These ships introduced a smarter, lighter hull design and advanced structural reinforcement that let them stack containers higher than anyone had dared before, without the whole thing twisting itself apart in heavy seas. When the flagship Gulsun set sail from Asia toward Europe, it briefly carried the title of the most cargo ever loaded onto a single ship. The class has sister vessels with names like MSC Samar, MSC Mia, and MSC Lenny, and even today, more than half a decade later, these old giants would still dwarf almost anything built before them. The Gulsun didn't just set a record, it redrew the map of what was possible. And every ship higher on this list owes it a debt. Number 9, CMA CGM Sign. Now we move from the ship that broke the barrier to one of the cleanest giants on the ocean. The CMA CGM Sign is one of the newest vessels on this entire list, delivered in 2025 to the French shipping titan CMA CGM, and it carries up to 23,876 TEU. But the headline number here isn't the capacity, it's what's burning inside the engine room. The Sign is an LNG dual-fuel ship, meaning it can run on liquefied natural gas instead of the thick, heavy fuel oil that has powered cargo ships for the better part of a century. Why does that matter? Because these vessels are floating power plants. A ship this size burns an astonishing amount of fuel, pushing 230,000 plus tons of steel and cargo across an ocean at 22 knots, switching to LNG slashes sulfur emissions to almost nothing, cuts particulates, and meaningfully reduces the carbon footprint of every single container on board. CMA CGM bet early and bet big on this technology, and the Sign represents the payoff. A ship that is simultaneously one of the largest and one of the cleanest on the planet. It's a glimpse of where the entire industry is heading, because regulators in Europe and beyond are tightening the screws on dirty marine fuel every year. The Sign isn't just big, it's a preview of the future of shipping sailing today. Number 8. The HMM Algeciras class. Here's a ship with a serious claim to fame. When the HMM Algeciras was delivered in 2020, it was crowned the largest container ship in the entire world. South Korea's flagship carrier, HMM, ordered an entire fleet of these monsters, and the Algeciras and her sisters can each haul up to 23,964 TEU. There are 12 ships in this class, with names borrowed from the great ports of Europe: Algeciras, Copenhagen, Hamburg, Rotterdam, Oslo, a rolling tribute to the trade routes they were born to serve. What's remarkable about the Algeciras class is the story behind it. HMM had come through brutally hard years, and these 12 giants were a statement to the world that the company was back and aiming for the very top. Built by Daewoo, now known as Hanwha Ocean, the ships were engineered to maximize every cubic meter of space while keeping fuel consumption per container as low as physically possible. On its very first voyage, the HMM Algeciras loaded a record-breaking amount of cargo, announcing its arrival in the most dramatic way imaginable. And here's the detail that always stops people cold. A ship carrying nearly 24,000 containers, worth well over $1 billion in cargo, is typically run by a crew of only around 20 to 25 people. 24 souls, alone in the middle of the Pacific, steering a vessel longer than 4 football fields. Let that sink in. Number 7, the Ever Ace class. If the name Ever rings a bell, hold that thought, because we are about to talk about the most infamous shipping company on the internet. But first, the Ever Ace itself. Delivered in 2021 to Taiwan's Evergreen Marine, the Ever Ace can carry up to 23,992 TEU. And when it launched, it snatched the world's largest crown right off HMM's head by the slimmest of margins. We're talking a difference of just a few dozen containers. In the world of megaships, that is a photo finish. The Ever Ace and her sisters, Ever Act, Ever Aim, Ever Alp, and more, are part of Evergreen's relentless push to stay at the front of the global fleet. And now, that bell I told you to remember? Evergreen is the same company whose ship, the Ever Given, became a worldwide phenomenon in March 2021 when it wedged itself sideways across the Suez Canal and blocked one of the planet's most important waterways for 6 straight days. The Ever Given is actually smaller than the Ever Ace. It's part of an older, slightly less enormous class. But it taught the entire world a lesson these bigger ships make even scarier. When a vessel this large goes wrong, it doesn't just inconvenience one company. It can choke off a chunk of the entire global economy, stranding hundreds of other ships and billions of dollars of goods, all because one giant got stuck. The Ever Ace is bigger, newer, and more capable than that famous troublemaker, which tells you just how high the stakes have climbed. Number 6, the Ever Allot class. And now we cross a line that no ship in human history had ever crossed before. In 2022, Evergreen did it again, and this time they broke through the legendary 24,000 TEU ceiling. The Ever Allot became the first container ship ever built to carry more than 24,000 containers, with a maximum capacity of 24,004 TEU. It seems almost funny, doesn't it? A record-shattering vessel that beat the barrier by a measly 4 boxes. But in this brutally competitive industry, 4 containers of bragging rights is worth a fortune in marketing and prestige. The Ever Allot was built in China by Hudong Zhonghua Shipbuilding, and it represents a genuine milestone in maritime engineering. The moment the 24,000 Club officially opened its doors. Everything about this ship is optimized down to the millimeter. A refined hull shape that slices through water with less resistance, energy-saving rudder and propeller designs, and systems that constantly monitor and tweak performance to squeeze out every drop of efficiency. When you're moving 24,000 containers across thousands of kilometers, even a 1% improvement in fuel efficiency translates into millions of dollars saved and thousands of tons of emissions avoided. The Ever Allot proved that the ceiling everyone assumed was the practical limit of ship size wasn't a ceiling at all. It was just a door waiting to be kicked open. And the ships above it on this list walked right through. Number 5, the MSC Tessa class. We're now firmly in the territory of the truly colossal, and the MSC Tessa raises the bar yet again. Delivered in 2023 and built in China by Hudong Zhonghua, the Tessa carries up to 24,116 TEU. When it entered service, it briefly held the record as the largest container ship on the planet, a title that, on this list, seems to change hands every few months. The Tessa is part of a class that includes vessels with names like MSC Celestino Maresca, MSC Gemma, and MSC China, all of them built to push the boundaries of fuel efficiency. Here's where these ships get genuinely clever. The MSC Tessa is loaded with green technology designed to shave down its environmental impact. It uses a slender, optimized bulbous bow to part the water more cleanly, energy-saving ducts ahead of the propeller, oversized propellers that turn more slowly and efficiently, and hybrid scrubbers that clean the exhaust before it ever leaves the funnel. But the standout feature is something called air lubrication, a system that literally pumps a carpet of tiny air bubbles out beneath the hull, so the ship glides on a cushion of fizz rather than dragging its full weight through dense seawater. It sounds like science fiction, but it's real, and it can cut fuel use measurably across a long voyage. When you think about a ship the length of the Empire State Building, riding on a blanket of bubbles across the Pacific, you start to appreciate the sheer ingenuity packed into these floating cities. Number 4. The One Innovation class. Now we meet a giant that doesn't just claim records on paper, it holds the most jaw-dropping real-world record of them all. The One Innovation belongs to Ocean Network Express, a Japanese carrier famous for painting its ships a shade of magenta pink so bright you can spot them from a coastline. The Innovation and her sisters, Infinity, Integrity, Inspiration, Ingenuity, and Intelligence, each have a maximum capacity of 24,136 TEU. But specs only tell you what a ship could carry. The One Innovation went out and proved what it actually can. In September 2025, the One Innovation set sail from Singapore bound for Felixstowe in England, and when the final tally came in, it had physically loaded 22,233 containers onto its deck and into its holds. That is the all-time record for the most containers ever carried on a single ship. A real voyage with real cargo, not a theoretical maximum. Think about what that means for a second. 22,000 boxes of goods, electronics, furniture, clothing, car parts, food, riding on one hull across half the world. If you lined those containers up end to end, they'd stretch for roughly 80 miles. The One fleet has now broken this loading record multiple times, each voyage edging past the last. So while a few ships on this list have a higher theoretical capacity, the One Innovation is the reigning champion of what's actually been done. It doesn't just talk the talk, it hauled the haul. Number 3, the OOCL Spica/Piraeus class. Cracking the top 3, we have a fleet of giants flying the flag of Hong Kong. AACL, Orient Overseas Container Line, built a class of megaships that each carry up to 24,188 TEU. The first of them, the AACL Spain, made its maiden voyage in early 2023, and its sisters carry the names of the great ports they connect: Piraeus, Felixstowe, Zeebrugge, Gdynia, Valencia, and Abu Dhabi. When the lead ships of this class entered service, they briefly held the title of the largest container vessels in the world. These ships were built at Chinese shipyards as a joint venture between COSCO and Kawasaki Heavy Industries, and they were designed from the keel up to be eco-friendly heavyweights. OOCL leaned hard into efficiency and emissions reduction, equipping the vessels with the latest generation of fuel-saving hull forms and exhaust treatment. But what makes the OOCL class so striking is the sheer scale of the operation behind it. A single one of these ships, fully loaded, represents an almost unimaginable concentration of global commerce, a floating warehouse worth well over $1 billion in goods, knitting together the economies of Asia and Europe on a fixed clockwork schedule. Miss a sailing, and the ripple effects reach store shelves on the other side of the planet weeks later. These vessels are the steel arteries of the world economy, and most people have never heard a single one of their names. Until now. Number 2, the CMA CGM Notre Dame. We're almost at the summit, and our number 2 spot goes to one of the freshest giants ever to touch the water, the CMA CGM Notre Dame. This is a brand new addition to the world's elite, delivered to the French carrier CMA CGM with a maximum capacity of 24,212 TEU. It edges out almost every other ship on this list, falling just short of the very top by a margin that would be invisible to anyone standing on the dock. And unlike most of its rivals, which fly flags of convenience from Liberia or Panama, the Notre Dame proudly flies the flag of France, a point of real national pride for CMA CGM. What makes this ship so fascinating is that it's part of a wave of next-generation vessels that show the giants aren't done growing, they're just growing smarter. CMA CGM has poured investment into cleaner propulsion and cutting-edge design, and the Notre Dame carries forward the company's commitment to alternative fuels and AI-assisted logistics that optimize routing across the entire globe. Remember, this is the same company that, a few years back, launched the CMA CGM Jacques Sade, the first ultra-large container ship in the world, powered by liquefied natural gas, a genuine landmark in the history of shipping. The Notre Dame stands on the shoulders of that pioneer. It's a near-perfect blend of raw, record-threatening size and forward-looking technology, and it proves that the race for the crown is still wide open. Which brings us at last to the ship that wears it. Number 1, the MSC Irina class. This is it, the biggest container ship in the world. The MSC Irina, operated by the Mediterranean Shipping Company, is the reigning champion of the seas, with a staggering maximum capacity of 24,346 TEU. Built in China by Yangtze Jiang Shipbuilding and entering service in 2023, the Irina stretches nearly 400 meters long and just over 61 meters wide, with a gross tonnage of around 233,000. To translate that length into something your brain can grip, The MSC Arena is longer than the Empire State Building is tall. Stand that famous skyscraper on its side, and this ship would still stick out past the end of it. And the Arena isn't alone. It's the flagship of a class of titans that includes the MSC Loreto, the MSC Michel Capellini, the MSC Mariella, the MSC Mikol, and the MSC Türkiye, each one tying for the title of largest ship on Earth. MSC, the company behind them, is the single biggest container shipping line on the planet, operating a fleet of hundreds of vessels and commanding a fifth of all global container capacity. The Arena is the crown jewel of that empire. It's packed with every efficiency trick in the book: enormous slow-turning propellers, air lubrication that floats the hull on bubbles, and hybrid scrubbers that scrub the exhaust clean, all working together to trim emissions by several % on every voyage. But let's end where the awe really lives. This single ship can carry 24,346 containers. If you took those boxes and lined them up end to end, they would stretch for over 90 miles, long enough to bridge entire cities. Inside those boxes is enough cargo to stock thousands of stores. And the whole operation, this 900 foot longer than a skyscraper Leviathan worth hundreds of millions of dollars, is steered across the most dangerous oceans on Earth by a crew you could comfortably fit on a single bus. The MSC Arena is the largest moving man-made object dedicated to a single purpose that most people on Earth have never seen, never heard of, and never imagined could exist. And every single day, ships exactly like it are out there right now, silently carrying the world's stuff from one continent to another, the invisible giants that hold modern life together. If this blew your mind even half as much as it blew mine, you know what to do, and I'll see you in the next one.